Unless you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit, and now here's your host, Rich Barris.
Get used to that a little bit. All right, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Look, I think we're going to push this back till 12. There's a lot of people in the audience that overlap with another show, we all know, which I was just on, the War Room. So instead, I think we're going to do this. We're going to move Inside the Numbers to 12, which a lot of people wanted to do anyway. We originally did not do because we didn't want to compete with the man himself. But alas, that's not an issue anymore. So we are going to do this. All right. So we have the latest results of the public polling project. If you are a member, a supporter of peoplespundit.locals.com, then you have it already. You've had it since yesterday, along with my thoughts about it. We're going to go over a bunch of it today. But as you know, there's a lot of stuff in it. There's a ton of stuff in it. And we're going to do a lot today, but over the course of the weekend, I'm really going to start to dig in there and show that, you know, a lot, we've did some new things and show what I think is significant. All right, getting into it, you know, the basic top lines, and then I'll go to the crosstabs, the interactive crosstabs, and we'll play around with them a little bit. But generally speaking, for those who didn't see the War Room this morning, we're going to go over, recap a little bit, and then we'll get into some of the more granular stuff on shortages. Americans, are they experiencing shortages when they go to the grocery store? If so, how bad is it? How much is inflation impacting their day-to-day life at the grocery store? Meat and poultry, eggs, bread, produce, fruits and vegetables, etc., etc. Paper goods, right? The toilet paper saga. Yeah, we asked about it. All right, but what is the headline of this poll? Biden's approval got a little bit worse. That's not even major here. His issues, they suck. We're going to look at them. And they always did suck. COVID, though, got a little bit worse. So we were not surprised to see the overall get a little bit worse. The main takeaway here, and I'm going to spend a second talking about other polls briefly. All right. But the main takeaway here is that people really don't know what the hell is happening with the Ukraine situation. The president is not doing what presidents normally do. I'm not even sure he's capable of it. In fact, everything that we have been hearing is not good. All right. So this is pretty bad situation. You have President Vladimir Zelensky holding a press conference just a little bit ago, at which time he completely humiliated the president of the United States. They had a phone call, which, guys, it's almost like this is why. So when 12 to 15% of the public, which a lot of people asked about on locals, when 12 to 15% don't have an opinion, it's because many of them don't know what the hell is happening. And you have a media who is so dishonest and deceptive. They literally purge their own social media networks of bad press for the president because they don't want the public to see it. This is the danger of having an American media or any media, corporate media, that is more like North Korean state-sponsored media, because that's what CNN is when they go and delete Jake Tapper's segment, when they go and remove all of the reports from social media. It is true that the president and Vladimir Zelensky had a bad phone call. It is true that Vladimir Zelensky disagreed with Joe Biden over the threat that Russia faces to Ukraine. And here's what's going on with Ukraine. And in case you haven't seen it, if you're not understanding what's happening, the Ukrainians don't want us there, especially Eastern Ukraine. They don't want us there. They don't like Americans. It's not Americans. They don't like America. They don't like our foreign policy. They view us as meddlers. The embassy in Kiev is one of the most hated embassies in the country, that as far as the domestic population goes. All right. And they don't share the assessment that the West shares from Boris to Biden, because they don't share this hatred, this like blind, irrational hatred of Russia. They don't. I think a lot of Americans need to read up on a little something called Pan-Slavism. It's amazing how many of us have these views, Max Boots of the world, when he just clearly doesn't know the situation in the country. He clearly is. Of course he is. This is a man, and a lot of them have been grossly ignorant about every country that they have advocated to invade, protect in decades. So Americans are left going, what the hell is going on? All I know is that I have problems finding meat when I go to the grocery store. All I know is that eggs and bread are becoming an issue. This is ridiculous. All I know is that I'm paying significantly more for these goods when I do find them. And the reason why I wanted to ask this is because of the public polling project from the fall, going into the holiday season, when a certain respondent just said something that stuck with us, which is that, when I want something, I can't find it. When I find it, I can't afford it, kind of thing. And I wanted to know whether that was widespread. You have the media and the political class saying, oh, that's just, relegated to certain areas of the country. We're going to test that theory. All right. We're going to see. We did test that theory. And spoiler alert, it's not true. Is it worse for some people? Now, that's a different story. But the majorities are so big that there is no other honest way to characterize it other than widespread. It's a widespread problem. All right. All right. So let's first and foremost look at the top lines here. You know what? It's not going to fit the screen perfectly because I did it kind of last minute, but we never go over right track, wrong track. And it's predictive. It's true. How predictive is debatable, but nevertheless, I don't think it's debatable that it is predictive. NBC News poll has the worst back-to-back right track, wrong tracks in the history of their polling. We are not at 75% wrong track, although we are now scraping a super majority, basically. Okay, let's look at it, because when we started this puppy, this is what you call a step, right? Basically, we had, and I'm going to give you the data, starting from March, we had about 40.5% of the country who said we were on the right track, and 50 who said we were on the wrong track, 9.6 who said we were they were unsure, and about the spread being negative 9.5%. My oh my, how things have changed over the course of a year. That was only a few months, handful of months after Joe Biden was inaugurated. We just passed his 1-year anniversary 7 days ago, a week ago, almost to the T. Now, the next month, wrong track started, actually, it ticked down, not much. It was marginal, 49.6, while right direction ticked up slightly, marginally, 40.9. Well within the sampling error. So, I mean, it's not really, when it goes from negative 9.5 to negative 8.8, yeah, it's not worth jumping up and down over, but at least it didn't go in the other direction by 1.4, 1.6, right? All right. But as we entered the summer, things really started to get bad. Last summer, not this, last summer. So by August, only 35.8% told us the country was headed in the right direction, when another 54.7% told us it was headed in the wrong. And that's when we got to majority wrong track. All right. And the unsure remained at about 9.6, as it has been, as it was for the first three polls, right around that general area, 9.5, 9.6. But the spread obviously widened, negative 18.9. September, by the fall, not right before the fall, right before the end of the summer. All right. Right track went to about a third, 33.6, where wrong track ticked up slightly to 55.8 from 54.7 the prior survey. Unsure, no opinion, went to 10.6, but still, nevertheless, the spread ballooned out to negative 22.2. November in the fall, we fell below a third. 30.1 said we were headed in the right direction. 62.1 said we were headed in the we were on the wrong track. 7.8, a less, now that we're getting smaller with unsure, said they had no opinion, and the spread was negative 32, or wrong track 32. Now this latest poll, this is the worst, this is the lowest in the history of the Public Polling Project. 27% only say that we're headed in the right direction, when 64.5, nearly a supermajority, it is a supermajority, and consider the sampling error, really, think that we're on the wrong track. Only 8.5 said they were unsure, going down below the previous, the first part of that, the first three surveys that we had conducted. All right, still a little bit higher, but marginally than the prior survey in the fall. Wrong track, 37.5. Okay, the spread is negative 37.5. This is the worst. Can it get worse? I guess. Probably. I don't know. We're going to find out. When I saw the NBC News poll, I thought, oh, dear God. I mean, this is his 30-year history, that poll. And they've never seen right track, wrong track numbers this bad, especially not back-to-back consecutive numbers. We're showing a worsening trend. We'll see if ours are back-to-back too. All right, Joe Biden's approval rating. Boom. There's the trend for Joe Biden's approval rating. Got a little bit worse this month. Not terribly worse, but a little bit worse. Approval dipped about a point. He's in the 30s. Disapproval is now headed north of 60%. We are really, or he is, really getting at risk here of a majority strongly disapproving. So when we looked at his overall, and I'll give you that actually. Let's take a look at that. Give me 1 second, let me bring it up, and I'll give you the actual breakdown of how it is. Because obviously intensity matters, right? And from the very jump, from the beginning of this thing, we told you Joe Biden has no base. Nobody loves Joe Biden. Nobody's dying to jump, into a volcano or crawl over broken glass to vote for Joe Biden or support Joe Biden. Nobody loves Joe Biden. And now his image is actually getting rather negative. He went from being the great unremarkable to a near majority really kind of hating this guy. Over 42.2% strongly disapprove of the job Joe Biden is doing. 15.9 strongly approved. Ladies and gentlemen, that intensity index is abysmal. Has anybody looked at Rasmussen's intensity index the last time we checked? Does anybody know where they're at right about now? I'm actually curious. This is really bad because they're the only other ones who track it. I mean, we're now at, and we started where isn't, he never had a great intensity index, but it's negative. It's what actually I did something wrong here. Hold on. It is his intensity index in our polling is negative 26.3. Not even Donald Trump had negative intensity indexes like this. Why? Because he had a base who loved him. No matter what, there was always a good chunk of voters who said, I strongly approve. Why? I love the guy. Same thing with Barack Obama. And even George Bush before he completely collapsed the U.S. economy, or he presided over the collapse. He didn't start the subprime crisis, but he didn't do anything about it. And when it happened, his base that loved him, made up largely of white evangelicals, they abandoned him. And he ended up in the 20s. Another 16.4 disapprove, bringing his total disapproval to 58.6. Again, really coming up on a, 6 out of 10 disapproval, which is, it really is. I mean, it statistically is 6 and 10 disapprove. But you're getting to a point now where almost a majority strongly disapproves of the job Joe Biden is doing. 23.5% somewhat approved. So we're talking about less than 2 in 10 who really think this guy's doing a good job. 16%. These are really bad numbers. Forget about for a first-term president. We've actually seen stuff like that before. This guy has everything on his side. He's got corporate media on his side. He has fake fact checkers on his side. He has social media on his side, censoring, persecuting. I mean, let's take this with context. Let's be real here. With every advantage built into this, like, where's my 9-ball players? Joe Biden is basically spotted the 7, the 6, let's say 6. He's spotted the 6. All he's got to do is not mess up 3 shots. If politics was a game of 9-ball, Joe Biden is spotted the 6. And he's still doing terribly. All right, now, that's the trend. Let's look at his issues. Ironically, this really drives home the point I've been making. Oh, hold on one second before we get into it. I've told you from the jump, this guy never got high marks consistently anyway on any other issue other than COVID. On every other measure that a president is measured, is gauged. The economy, foreign policy, immigration, crime, on foreign relations with different countries. On every single measure, the man was negative. And consistently so, and badly so. Only on COVID did he ever get high marks. Almost 60% approval at the start of our polling. And I told you once that coronavirus approval started to fall, the rest of it was coming down like a house of cards. And that's where we're at now. It turned negative for the first time in the fall survey, the prior survey we did, when only about 45% approved of the job he was doing, and about 51, I think it was, he was like negative, right? 6, something like that. Disapproved. On other issues, he was even worse than he is this month, although it's all marginal. So even while he did, marginally better on some of these other issues, it still sucks. You'll see it. He did worse on COVID this month. And because he did worse on COVID, his overall approval fell. You can almost overlay the trend with Joe Biden's approval on handling the pandemic with his overall approval rating. You can almost overlay it. Economy and jobs, only 37.7% approve of the job Joe Biden is doing on the economy and jobs. 59.4% disapprove. And again, let me pull these up as I do this and show these to you guys. I'm going to give you the strongly disapprove on every single one of these. On jobs in the economy, 42.4% strongly disapprove on the job he's doing. It almost mirrors, the only difference is the somewhat. It almost mirrors his overall approval rating, which is pretty incredible. All right, on foreign policy, which I don't know why I have this like that. I put it in the wrong order on the crosstab. I'll change it. Let's go to coronavirus. On the coronavirus, he's now down to 42.5%. 54.5% disapprove of the job he's doing on COVID. 20.7% strongly approve of the job Joe Biden is doing on COVID. Another roughly 2 in 10, it says 21.8, somewhat approve. 37.7%, now almost 4 in 10, strongly disapprove of the job he is doing on COVID. 17.1, somewhat disapprove. All right, immigration and border security. So now even on COVID, because what you got to think, what can he do to fix this? What can they do to fix it? Will they be able? So this is what I was talking about so much when I brought up the idea that this is because he made an impossible to keep campaign promise. So now that reality is set in, and 4 in 10 are basically like, this guy was totally full of you know what, with another almost 2 in 10 saying they disapprove. What can he do to fix it? Think about his prospects here. Can he get it under control? Can he stop the variants from coming? Can he shut down the virus, not the economy? It was an impossible, it was asinine to believe or to argue in the first place. Why am I saying this? They set themselves up for this. Now, the ends justify the means. They just wanted to get in power. Obviously, they're not reacting to poll numbers. Joe Biden patently tells the press he doesn't believe them. And now, because he said that, by the way, you're starting to see some of these, repeat offenders. Repeat offenders. Let me say this unequivocally. Some of the other polls out there, I totally believe are full of crap. I don't believe it's a methodological problem. Locals, I'll go over in a live stream with you the raw data. You'll see, I think we were being generous to Joe Biden here. And Democrats on the generic ballot. They're getting killed. Joe Biden is not popular. These policies are not popular. People definitely see empty shelves. We're going to get there. People definitely see price increases. We're going to get there. So, I mean, you could basically go in an alternative reality if you want, but these problems are here. You can push poll if you want, but these problems are here. There is no way Joe Biden can get to 47% approval. Shame on you if you have that. It's not a methodological issue at this point. They're so bad. The numbers are so bad. Wait till we look at the hypothetical. Trump versus Biden. There are more liberals who are so angry with Joe Biden, they would vote for Donald Trump than there are conservatives who would vote for Joe Biden. That's backward. Typically, there is almost always more conservatives willing to vote for a Democratic candidate than there are liberals who are willing to vote for Republican candidates. And it's like never happens. Except for 2016, by the way. In places like Michigan. But even so, there are still conservative Democrats. And what happened this month is that those liberals who are just getting pissed, there's cracks in the Democratic base here. There's no way to put it. With Joe Biden, the Democratic base has cracked. We're coming up on almost 20%. Just about. I think it's 18. Let me not speak out of turn here. Let me pull it up. Party detail. And Biden's approval. And you guys know that I'm not one of those people. When I see polls, it's like 25% crossover either way, or even, close to 20. I just think bull. God bless you. But, the teens to like 20%, I get. The last time we saw somebody lose over 20% of their base was Jimmy Carter against Ronald Reagan. And it was a massacre. The election was over in like a half hour. Joe Biden, 12% of Democrats somewhat disapprove. Now 7% strongly disapprove. So we're at 19% disapproval with Joe Biden among Democrats. And for those who care, we're at 29% basically among true independents. He improved a little bit with third-party voters, but it's still only a little over 30%. So overall, when you combine them together, it's about 30% approval. Although among true independents, it's lower. So they set themselves up for this, getting back to the original thought. That was not a real argument. I'm going to shut down the pandemic and not going to. Joe Biden was going to do better on the pandemic than Donald Trump? Really? A man who Barack Obama removed from the swine flu task force because of incompetency? Because he missed the vaccine rollout targets? Folks, in the 6-month target, Joe Biden hit 11%. Yes, 11%. Go back and look it up. Barack Obama wanted X number of vaccines, which was, I think, about 100,000 and change. And he got like 11. It was 11%. So, or 100 million, excuse me. I misspoke. Then he got about 11. So they set themselves up for this because they made this impossible to keep campaign promise. And it was only a matter of time before Americans were going to see it was impossible. And now they see it. So my question here is, how is he going to do better? Booster after booster after no. It's not a viable option. Let me just break everybody's bubble, pop everybody's bubble right now. That is not a viable option. Why? Because there are too many people who got the 2-dose vaccine who say they're not getting this. They're done. They're done. They're not getting the booster. And why? Because we still have a significant percentage of the population, which we can look at again, who simply won't get the 2-dose. They're not doing it. And we'll look at that trend too, because it's actually amazing how over the course of a year, almost a year, asking people about vaccination status, how clear the picture is. Those who said, I got it, started out low, but then that I intend to get it was cannibalized. The I have no plans to get it is incredibly consistent. And they're not budging. They are not budging. And in fact, if you consider the booster being fully vaccinated, then you're going to have a bigger problem. Because not only do you have now that 20 to 25%, it's usually about, I think the average is about 22%, almost exactly what we found this month. You're going to not only have the problem with those people just being a hard no, they're not getting it. You're also going to be compounded with the problem now of people who did get the 2-dose who will not get boosters. And that number is high. It may have something to do with the follow-up question we asked, by the way, which we're going to have to save for Rumble or Locals because certain platforms, YouTube, don't want people to know the truth. Getting back to Joe Biden's approval rating on the issues. All right. Immigration. Let me pull up immigration so I can give you the immigration and border security. 42.2% strongly disapprove. You know what's amazing about this? There's actually like about a quarter of Democrats who disapprove of the job Joe Biden is doing on immigration. It's actually pretty incredible. So 34.1% with only 12% being strongly approve. Overall, only 34% approve, only 12% strongly approve. The man lives off of somewhat juice, okay? He does not have, and on any of these issues, nor overall, does he have a significant percentage of the public who actually likes him or loves him. They don't. He is basically a default president. Going to crime. Overall, 34. Oh, and by the way, look at the disapproval in immigration. 59.2%. 34.9% approve of the job Joe Biden is doing on crime. 39.5% strongly disapprove. 19% somewhat disapprove. Only 12.5% strongly approve of the job he is doing on crime. On U.S.-China relations, 40% even, 40 up. Strongly disapprove of the job he is doing with U.S.-China relations. Overall, you can clearly see only 32.9% approve, with only less than 11.8% strongly approving. Overall, 57.1% strongly disapprove of the job Joe Biden is doing handling U.S.-China relations. Another biggie for a president here, foreign policy. Kind of matters. We got Ukraine going on right now. Obviously, that's crappy territory. 34.7% approve of the job Joe Biden is doing on foreign policy. That includes less than 14% who strongly approve, when, again, 4 in 10 strongly disapprove. All right, so with that, did I miss? I didn't miss any, right? No, I did not. Let's leave it on the foreign policy page here, and let's get to Ukraine. Okay, speaking of foreign policy, let me give you the bird's eye view. There is no appetite for conflict with Russia over Ukraine. There is no appetite for defending Ukraine at all. Apparently, that's also true across the damn Atlantic Ocean, if you listen to Vladimir Zelensky's press conference. The bottom line is Western elites are apparently rushing into this thing for their own personal and financial interests. When the people of Ukraine are saying, "Oh, hold up," and the people of America are saying, "Oh, hold up," they don't give a damn. On everything but humanitarian aid, voters are opposed. There is widespread support. If Russia does invade, something happens, there's a humanitarian crisis, fine. Help them out. Americans are very giving, very generous people, but they do not want the U.S. military to interfere in the affairs of Eastern Europe. They do not want the U.S. military being used to aid the Ukrainians against Russia. Not at all. Even when it comes to providing lethal weapons. Combat advisors did a little bit better. Actually, it was about split, but it was very clear. Many people don't know what we're talking about. I'm not saying that in an insulting way at all. That's why you might have seen me tweet out. And when they say advisors, those are combat troops. When they say military advisors, those are ODAs. Those are Green Berets. That's what they do. They go with the indigenous population, teach them how to fight, teach them how to defend themselves, advise them. And guess what happens when it's time? They fight with them and die. They fight and die. If things go bad, it's going bad for them too. That is what an ODA does. That's why the slogan is what it is. The oppresso liber. To liberate the oppressed. Putting U.S. troops on the ground and in combat, nobody wants to do this. Rasmussen found 31. We found 31.8. It's pretty close because it's right. A majority opposes it. And when we look at where the intensity is on this stuff, strongly oppose is the largest category in every single one. 29.3 or about 30% strongly oppose this. Somewhat oppose is another quarter. Only 10% of the country. Only 10%. Let me say this again. 10% of the country actually believes that we should send troops to Ukraine. That's it. That's it. And this time around, by party, Democrats are like 37.4% support it, where independents and Republicans, independents being 24% overall, even somewhat. And third-party voters are at 16%. So you can see why the anti-war candidates are really the future of electoral politics in this country. People are persuadable. You know, there's just 47% of Democrats, or 47.9, oppose doing this. But they're, how many of them are actually going to vote for you? 15% are undecided. If Republicans were smart, they would oppose this with every fiber in their being. Hold on one second. Let me get a quick sip of water. Let me Marco Rubio this puppy for a second. All right, where are we at? Putting U.S. troops on the ground to serve as combat advisors. Like I said, actually pretty tight. Statistically, it's tied. But that's because, again, people really don't know what we're talking about when we say that. They think it's like the Pentagon picking up the phone or something and saying, "Put your soldiers here. Watch out for that cruise missile." Folks, I'm not kidding. They don't know that means teams of special operators. And when it comes down to it, how much do you really want to put on the line? How much do you really want to provoke Russia in defense of Ukraine? Do you support or oppose launching U.S. airstrikes against Russian targets? No. No, it's like negative 35. And in fact, when we look at that, the strongly opposed is almost 4 in 10. Another roughly quarter somewhat oppose it. Strongly support, again, is like it's identical. 10%, 10.2. It's identical. There's just like 1 out of 10 who strongly support doing this across the board. That's it. The rest of these support numbers, even when they get into the 30s and 40s, are soft. The truth is just the opposition has all of the energy. The opposition has all the momentum. And again, I've never seen in my life a president not make the case for military action, not sell it to the American people. George Herbert Walker Bush, he may have used lies about babies and incubators to do it, but he sold the Gulf War. Johnson may have used the Gulf of Tonkin lie to get involved and escalate Vietnam, but he sold it in the beginning to the American public. Woodrow Wilson, the racist, may have lied about the Lusitania, but he sold it to the American public. And by the way, most recently, George W. Bush may have lied about WMDs, but he still sold it to the American public. Here you have Joe Biden and the Biden administration, according to Vladimir Zelensky, lying about the situation in Ukraine, but he's not really even trying to sell it. It's incredible. It's really something that's incredible. So the U.S. providing military aid, I mean, the airstrikes are very clear. I don't really have to get into detail about that, right? And again, the strongly oppose is like almost, it's 4 and 10, basically. The U.S. military providing lethal aid, weapons to the Ukrainians is opposed +7. It's actually closer. It's opposed +8 if you do the opposed +8. So really, when you get down to it, many Americans realize that every time we arm a country, we wind up having those weapons used against us. And furthermore, after Afghanistan, nonetheless, leaving everything behind. Furthermore, in the end, the headline of this poll, all of this needs to be taken into context with the deep trepidation that people feel about the U.S. economy and inflation and shortages and all that comes along with it. Housing prices, gas prices, even taxation at this point rose this month because people are like, look, if inflation's going to rise, you can't burden us with taxes. I mean, is it an issue that people are like jumping up and down to make themselves heard about? No, food and groceries is that problem. Gas prices followed shortly behind. Housing prices, housing and shelter. Those 3 are the majors. With, by the way, food and groceries being by far the most. But there still is, so Kevin McCarthy shouldn't get it in his head to run on tax cuts. I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying that it typically is in the very low single digits. And now it's cracking, double digits or close to it. And I'll show you that. But again, even 26.2% strongly oppose giving lethal aid to the Ukrainians. Another 2 and 10 somewhat oppose it. When you really only have 14.8% strongly support doing it. And a little bit less than a quarter somewhat support it. So people are opposed to this. This is not close. Where are we at? 1240. Let's get into let's take a look at what people do care about. Let's do that. All right. Let me bring up what people actually do care about, and then we'll look at the generic ballots. We'll look at the generic ballot. We'll look at 2024. All right. I'm burning through as quick as I can here to get as much information to you guys as possible. All right. Inflation has officially overtaken jobs and the economy as the #1 voting issue. Let me make this bigger because I could see it small. I did it by party detail. Democrats even started to suffer with educated people. When you hurt somebody's pocket, it's true. When you hurt somebody's pocket, then you get their attention real damn quick. A major problem Donald Trump had, and Republicans had in 18, and then Donald Trump had in 20, is that they essentially solved the number one issues. I mean, people were feeling good about the economy. Even after the pandemic, they felt like things were going to be brighter if they were Donald Trump's voters. Obviously that was the case even more so. But Democrats effectively used a pandemic to change not only the political landscape, but the rules of the game. It's the only way they beat Donald Trump. It's just true. By the way, we can talk about the state. I know people, I see the questions about Pennsylvania. And folks, Pennsylvania's not alone. It comes after Wisconsin. No, nobody invalidated or decertified or anything like that, but it is true that these judges ruled that all of these ballots were illegal. It was unconstitutional, as we told you for months and months leading up into the election. But Democrats effectively use COVID to change the political landscape. I want you to look where COVID is now on most important issues. It has slid to a very distant number 3, and it's about to be overtaken by immigration. Immigration is soaring. This thing doubled, and I strongly suspect, and it's actually more than that, because there were some other responses that were immigration specific. They didn't want to just say immigration and border security. So technically, it would probably be close to tied with COVID if we did include those people. And here's the shtick when it comes to COVID. 11% who chose it as their most important voting issue. We followed up and asked how they felt about the policies themselves. You have half of them now choosing COVID, almost a little bit less than half now choosing COVID because they actually feel that those policies need to remain where they are. They don't want stricter. 52.2% of those want stricter policies. So we're looking at about 5.5, 5.8% of the electorate who think it's vital to break us over COVID restrictions again. That's it. The hysteria is over. Another quarter think that those policies are too strict, and a little bit less think that they're all right. So what I'm telling you is, even those who pick COVID are not universal mask-wearing Marys who think that we need to crush the U.S. economy to stop somebody from getting a sniffle. It's over. Why do you think you see everybody pushing for February 1st? Why do you think you heard Boris Johnson say what he heard? Why do you think all these Democrats on Sunday shows are trying to tamper down the fanatics that they created? And Barry Weiss making news going on Bill Maher. I'm over it. Which stirred controversy. Because they created these fanatic monsters. The good news is they are a very tiny minority now. The bad news is they exist in the first place. But this is basically a mental disorder at this point. And speaking of which, I was looking at some stats on traffic accidents, which soared last year. Deadly traffic accidents as well. And what do they blame people for? What are they blaming? The transportation department? They are blaming increased drug and alcohol use that people are turning to deal with pandemic-related stress. So congratulations. You actually exacerbated an already real problem, which is honestly probably worse than COVID. Our drug and alcohol addiction level in this country is serious. Now, COVID is serious to some people, but COVID it's indiscriminate in infecting you, but it's not indiscriminate in taking your life. Drug and alcohol addiction is. Anybody can succumb to it, including the People's Pundit, including Navy SEALs, including presidents and their children. By the way, if you didn't see Laura's Getter post before, you should go look at it. it got it's hilarious, but it's sadly true. I went on it. I went on a rant about it earlier in the week. We're doing this for what? To enable Hunter Biden? I just somebody has to explain to me, because apparently the public, agrees with me. Somebody has to explain to me what exactly we're doing this for. Is it just to make sure that, some privileged little snob has the money to buy Chinese hookers and crack? Come on. Don't you think American sons and daughters deserve more than that? Husbands and wives deserve more than this? All right, that's mitigation policies aren't strict enough. Let's go back first before I jump into inflation detail. I just want to point this out. Look at the difference between Republican and independent sentiment versus Democratic sentiment. Where 17% of Democrats still believe COVID is the number one issue. 14% view jobs in the economy as the number one issue. And 19%, less than everyone else, views cost of living and inflation as the number one issue. It is also true that less than everybody else, Democrats view the economy and jobs as the number one issue. They don't think immigration and border security is an issue, basically, at all. They live look, and I'm not, if you're a Democrat listening right now, I'm not saying this to be mean. I'm saying this as a matter of fact. You're living in your own world. You are living in your own world. Everybody else is putting their pocketbook first and the well-being of their family first. And I wonder how much of this is earnest. I truly do. Do you want COVID to be the number one issue because you know that you benefit when everyone's scared and locked down and you get universal mail-in voting without the judges telling you it's unconstitutional? So how much of this really is earnest? You don't think they see what everyone else sees at the grocery store? I don't buy that I just don't buy that for a second. I think there's a little bit of dishonesty here. You could just close your eyes if you want and pretend it doesn't exist. Almost identical percentages of Republicans and independents and third-party voters view cost of living as the number one issue. Almost an identical number of Republicans and independents view the economy and jobs as the number one issue. You can see third-party voters, you have a lot of younger liberal voters who do take climate change very seriously. They're in line with Democrats. They're that group anyway. And then they do care about public education, right a little bit more than even major two-party voters do. They don't like critical race theory. So if you're wondering which end of the spectrum they're on that, they're on it's funny because those who chose the environment and climate change clearly lean toward the Democratic position there, but those who chose education lean to the Republican position. They're more in line again with Republicans and Democrats and independents when it comes to COVID. They are a little bit less on the economy and jobs, but you can see how many chose inflation. And when we talk, so inflation, as I expected and predicted, has overtaken even jobs in the economy as the number one issue. And that's fair for people to point out and say, How is inflation not an economic issue? That's a fair point. But we're taking it out here explicitly because we're trying to see. We're not talking about the labor market. We're not talking about the health of a specific sector. We're not talking about the economy and jobs as it may relate to trade policy. We're not talking about any of those other things. We're specifically talking about the rise in the price of goods and how much it is impacting everyday living, the cost of living. So it's fair to wrap these all up as economic issues. So, like, how would I say that if I wanted to wrap them together? I would say economic concerns. And then I would split them up. Do you mean inflation? Do you mean this? But we want to know what specifically about inflation and cost of living they're talking about. So I'm not going to do 3 levels of logic just to find that out. If they're choosing inflation and cost of living, rest assured they're economic voters. So if we did put it together, I mean, COVID is a minor issue this year. It's just true compared to other things. This is turning out to be an environment Republicans really want. All right, so let's look at what they're talking about here. This is funny because we are seeing pretty much broad agreement. Hold on, I'm needing water again. I'm really Rubioing out over here. You know why? It's one of those like cold thirsts. It's cold. It's going to snow. And it's like one of those thirsts for when you're actually cold. A lot of people don't realize how badly cold can dehydrate somebody. Cold can sap water right out of your body. It's no joke. All right, but okay. Clearly, food and groceries. And let's read this question. Specifically regarding cost of living and inflation. Which would you say most concerns you? And you can see this is a sub-sample. If they chose cost of living, we asked them this question. Everybody got the questions about shortages and price increases. But we only wanted to ask those who chose cost of living and inflation, which you can see here. I decided I probably should put the logic on the crosstabs for you guys, just so people know and there's no confusion. If question number 12 is one of the following answers, cost of living, inflation, then they get this question. That's what that means. All right. Now, by party, you can see there's widespread agreement between Republicans and Democrats on food and groceries being the major problem. This is why you're seeing some liberals joining now with the very small remaining number of conservative Democrats in being dissatisfied with the president and the Democratic Congress. To the point where there is an overlap, even though, let me put it this way, even though Trump, his top line is a little bit less than Republicans on the generic ballot, not by much, Trump wins some Democratic voters over that Republicans aren't winning. The difference between Trump and the generic ballot, the Trump's lead and a Republican lead on the generic ballot, is that the independent margin for Republicans is bigger than the margin that would vote for Donald Trump. But Trump gets more crossover from Democrats. And by the way, locals, if you want to jump ahead and look at something, look at that hypothetical matchup with Trump and Biden. Look at Hispanics. All right, I'm not going to spoil it. Look at Hispanics. If you haven't since yesterday, I almost came out of the chair. Republicans win more white votes. Trump, his coalition is more diverse. How much does that burn the asses of some of these Republicans who say that they have to move on from Donald Trump so they're not branded with the stigma of racism and blah, 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 blah. Nobody actually believes that in the electorate. Trump's coalition is more brown, more black than Republicans. Republicans do a little bit better with white voters and marginally better with Asian voters, but it's hilarious. It's hilarious to me. It's not at all surprising, but it's hilarious. Because I have listened to these schmucks privately. Well, publicly, they go on Fox News and they praise them up and down all the time. But then publicly, they would go to like my friends asking for like millions of dollars. And they would tell them, once we really get rid of Donald Trump, we're really going to grow among black community. We're really going to grow with that Hispanic vote. They're really Republicans, They're really Republicans. They got like that 30-year-old saying. And, and Donald Trump does significantly better with these people. And what was a little bit shocked to me is the females. I think, and I don't look, ladies, I'm not trying to step in it here, so don't get mad at me. I think that women are more sensitive when they go to the grocery store and see these price increases. They see these shortages, because that really can only explain why it is that more women are more angry than men on a lot of these things. Why more women say, you know what, the hell with you, I'd vote for Donald Trump, than some men. And very clearly, which I wanted to put up on Locals, I'm going to do it after the show, I'll do it later today, the social bias indicators. How much worse is it really? Because women are consistently more likely than men to say they're very uncomfortable being honest with pollsters about their political beliefs. Conservatives are consistently more likely than liberals. Rural voters are consistently more likely, rural and suburban, by the way, than urban voters. So it's like you have this potential here for this sneak vote that is only leaning to one side. So how much worse is it really going to be? Maybe that's how even like somebody like Monmouth gets a 7-point lead for Jack Murphy. He could win 7 to 11%, and then he's barely scraping by, and or Phil Murphy, excuse me, and then he's barely scraping by against Jack Citarelli, because those women really did just go into the voting booth and say, "The hell with it. The hell with these people." That's how that happens. All right, food and groceries, 47.1%. You can see the agreement here again, getting back to that. Housing and shelter, number 2. Interesting, because if you poll a place like California, statewide or in districts like we're polling right now in the Valley and elsewhere, by the way, that's a whole other segment. Republicans are just rolling over like a bunch of cowards in a district they absolutely can win, because there's what they believe to be a moderate Democrat. Shame, 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 shame. Democrats play for every single seat. It's once in a lifetime opportunity to take an open seat in the Valley, and they're schmucks. Anyway, it's all to get rid of the Trumpism in the party. Anyway, housing and shelter is now 19.6, overtook gas and fuel this month. 13.5% said gas and fuel. Republicans and independents are much, much more concerned, and as are third-party voters, than Democrats about the price of gas and fuel. Why is that? Could it be that they disproportionately live in urban areas and other areas where there is public transportation? I don't know, but good hypothesis. I mean, I know that it is the case that they do. They simply don't use gas like suburban and rural America do. And if you look at housing and shelter, they're more likely than Republicans to say housing and shelter. Why is that? Home ownership is higher among Republicans. 22.2% of independents also are concerned about it, as are 28.1%, which is really what accounted for that rising in housing and shelter. Tax and taxation is now 8.7% to include 7.5% of Democrats feel they're being overtaxed. 10% of Republicans, 8% of independents, 12% of third-party voters. All right. Medical, healthcare, not an issue to third-party voters. It is a marginal issue for independents. Actually, amazingly, Republicans are starting to care more. Why? The cost. They do pay for their insurance. Can I just be real? There are a lot of low-income Democrats who don't pay for their insurance. Utilities and electric, 5%, which is pretty incredible how even and across the board it was. And Joe Biden's favorite got a whopping 2 responses. Transportation and vehicles. Yes, Joe, everyone's concerned about the price of used cars on the car lot. They so prioritize that over food and groceries and rent and their mortgage. Nobody cares, Joe. It's amazing how out of touch. And it's not it's a uniparty issue. It's amazing how out of touch these people are. It's just, honestly, it's incredible. All right. I am going to, I think, yes, in a minute here, I'm going to play Bad Habit, and we're going to take a 2-minute break. We'll go over some more when we come back, and we'll go over the food and shortages. We'll go over a lot of this, okay? So give me 1 second here. We're going to do probably like 2 minutes or so. And then we'll bring Donna beyond. We're going to do a Q&A. That'll be fun. All right. And when we do come back, we're going to do it in that order, if that's all right with everybody. Where on earth? Yeah. I'm looking for something actually here. And we will be putting up, I just kind of held off on doing, the revamp of Big Data Poll until, there's just so much other stuff going on that I thought was more important. So basically, we'll get to it. And then once we do get it, we'll have basically so many other Everviz charts up on there, like the right track, wrong track. That was not available. I even want to do employment indexes. From month to month, how many people were full-time employed, part-time employed, or at least told us that, right? And that stuff is available now, of course, and you can go back and check it out if you have all the links to do it. But it is also true that it takes a long time to search for that stuff. So I want to make it as easy as possible. All right, so here's Bad Habit. Bowen Band, as always, special thanks to you. And we'll be back in about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I was hoping my new merch got here today so I could show it to you guys. It'll be here tomorrow. So if it gets there before Don's show, I'll rock it on Don's show for you guys to check it out. The Accuracy Matters one, which I think is pretty cool. But yeah, check it out. It's in the links in the thing below. All right. And I think we're going to start doing some giveaways too, which I think will be neat. Maybe we'll do like a raffle or something for locals or something like that. And I think that'll be fun. I think you guys try to give you as much as I can. I think you deserve it. All the support, we so much appreciate it. And it'd be neat to do things like that from time to time. All right, so with that in mind, I'm out like Trout. 2-minute break. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Inside the Numbers.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats is restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind. Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
All right, we're back to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget to join the Locals community, peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. All right. So, I forgot about the generic ballot. Whoops. All right, let's do that first before we get into some of the other stuff, and then you'll see why the generic ballot is the way it is. Again, a word on other polls. There's just no way. There is no way you could find a lead for Democrats on the generic ballot right now. I don't think this is like a methodological difference of opinion. Who's doing it? Who is the only ones who are finding like the Trump is down to Biden by 1 point, and then the headline is Biden would beat Trump, and it's 44-43. First of all, if that was even true, Biden would get stomped, because in the Electoral College, you better win it by 4 points or more if you're a Democrat, especially against somebody like Donald Trump, who has Midwest strength. But even if you could do that, and the Democrats have a couple point lead on the generic ballot, I just don't believe you. You want my honest take here, folks? I'm giving a speech next month about, do polls even matter anymore? Those don't. Those people don't. Why should you believe them when they were among the worst pollsters of 2020? Remember that episode? They were right below Quinnipiac. Morning Consult was literally in the top 5 of the worst pollsters of 2020. They poll for Politica. So there's just 2 universes of pollsters right now. There are the repeat offenders who suck year after year after year and put strains on our industry. And then there are those of us who are getting it right year after year. Plus some of the other ones now who are at least trying to save face. How on earth could we find a 6-point lead for Donald Trump? Harvard Harris find a 6-point lead for Donald Trump, and then they bust out with some crap like that. I honestly think you have to fudge the responses to get a Democratic lead on the generic ballot right now, or to have Joe Biden leading Donald Trump. I do. I'm saying it flat out. I think you are manipulating the hell out of your sample to do that. Laura, you're in the chat. You saw it. You saw the raw. I think I was being maybe even a little overly fair to Democrats and Biden. I really did. I really do. They are in a terrible position. And it's not because the sample was... They're at a point where we know some people, for instance, 46% said they voted for Donald Trump, about 50% said they voted for Joe Biden. There are actually people now that we know who voted for Joe Biden, or at least highly likely. And some, even we could look back to the API ID and see maybe last year we polled them, had interviewed them, and they told us they voted for Joe Biden, who now will not admit that they voted for Joe Biden and are in fact saying that they voted for Donald Trump or they voted for someone else, which is why this someone else number is inflated now in all our polling. These people don't want to admit they voted for Joe Biden. That's where we're at. which is why you cannot wait, which is one of the several reasons, main reasons, why you cannot wait by 2020 or any presidential vote preference. First of all, if you're doing that, how on earth are you waiting for the voters who are new voters or voters who did not vote in 2020? You can't apply a weighting variable if some of the responses are basically empty values. That's number one. I know that some of us are not supposed to talk this in detail to like the average audience to tell them that it's simply impossible to do that. Oops! It's impossible to do that. That's number one. And number two, people lie, especially when you have somebody like Joe Biden who's so deeply unpopular now. They're lying. All right, take a look at the generic ballot real quick, and then we'll bring on Don. Bang! Bi-party, Republicans have a 7-point lead on the generic ballot. 45-38. Okay? You can see they are utterly crushing Democrats among the independent vote. This is like 2010 level margin. Even among the something else third party, they are always more undecided than everybody else, as are independents, by the way. They will make up the largest share of undecided. Democrats have some opportunity here, being that slightly more of their base is undecided than Republicans. The only problem with that is Republicans are not losing really anything of statistical value to Democrats on the generic ballot. There is not a significant number, whereas with Democrats, that it's really 5 and below, 5 and above. That's when it becomes statistically significant, especially when a sample error is this small. This is opportunity, but when you look at who they are, they don't look vote rich, and it's not enough. Not enough when you're getting just completely bludgeoned like this. And why do I know that they really cannot count on these people having a change of heart and going back? At least not at this point, because when you look at, where is it? I thought it was at the very end. Is it not at the very end of this? Hold on. Let me try to bring it down more. When you look at, it's because it's above it. Sorry about that. When you go and look at where independents and third-party voters are aligning. So if they said they were independent or other, which is, again, the logic principle is here. If question 23 is one of the following answers, independent or something else, then they get this question. If you think of yourself as an independent or something else, are your views more closely aligned or align more closely to the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, equally close to the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, or share little in common with either? And of course, there's nothing for Democrats or Republicans because we simply didn't have any. They didn't get this question, of course. Independents, 33.4 to 25.1 are leaning to the Republican Party. Another 26% says they share little in common with either. 42% of third-party voters share little in common with either, but even they are leaning to the Republican Party. The voters who we were told by the media over and over ad nauseum were the key to Joe Biden getting a few more thousand votes in these states where he needed to get that. All right, so it's not a good picture. It is not a good picture. And anybody who comes, I just don't know how you could come out with anything. Democrat plus anything, folks. It's not viable right now. It's not a legitimate position to have as a pollster. It's a joke. They have the worst poll numbers since like 2010. And Donald Trump here is, when you're Joe Biden and you have less than 40% of the country approving of the job you're doing, if you're in the 30s, then your vote share is going to fall with it. And that's what happened here. Republicans and Democrats have about an equal number of people who say someone else. But the voters that Joe Biden won, supposedly, according to the media, almost double that number from the parties, say they would vote for someone else. But then, we're going to start to lean these people soon, actually, because I want to know when push comes to shove, there's not going to be 15% of a third party vote. It's very common to see this early, but it's not going to happen. And Donald Trump is crushing him among independents, 40-27. He's even got a 10-point lead among third-party voters. It's a bloodbath, man. It's a bloodbath. That's why Harris was 46-40. They lean them. And if we were to lean them too, Donald Trump has a much shorter path to 50 than Joe Biden does. Speaking of which, let's look at race, which I find interesting. Donald Trump is winning the white vote, and Hispanics are almost tied. Donald Trump is down by 2 among Hispanics. That's it. Do I believe it? You're damn right I do. And if you look at the generic ballot, see, Republicans do better with whites, but they actually, that's right. They got a little slight. They're doing a little bit better with Asians, Hispanics, and whatnot. That's right. Not with black voters though. Right. I had it back. I guess I had a little flip flop before. But in any event, we're going to start to lean those people because it's common to see that now. But in the end, that's not going to happen. And actually, I might have confused the other one with some districts in California that we were polling. All right, let's bring on Don. And thumbs up, Don. You ready, buddy? He's ready. Let's bring on Don, my good friend Don, as always, from the Don Smith Show, here to join us on Friday for a Q&A, because it's already 1:17. And I guess that's just I did want to get into some of the stuff, Don, and some of the price increase stuff at the grocery store. But, that's Pundit.locals.com. I ran out of time. What can I tell you? I can tell people off the bat that large numbers, and when I say large, for instance, milk and dairy, let's look at meat and poultry is a great example. 45%, Don, said yes, occasionally, that they are running into. The question is, have you personally experienced empty shelves or shortage when shopping for each of the following products? And I use the word empty shelves on purpose. I did. I wanted to see if there would be like a reaction from Democrats. And fact is, even Democrats told us they are. Is it less so than the others on many of these items? Yeah, because they're full of crap and they know where we're going with this. All right. But the fact is, 45% said yes occasionally. A little over a quarter, 25.6, said yes regularly. So when you combined it, Don, you're looking at over 70% of the country who say that they are having problems finding meat and poultry at the grocery store. We asked a lot. Everything from, let me just read, meat and poultry, seafood, fruits and vegetables, canned goods, paper goods such as toilet paper, paper towels, napkins, paper plates, milk and dairy, bread, and eggs. Even bread and eggs, Don, these are big numbers across the board, though some being worse than others. And then we asked about price increases with all of those categories as well. And they're big, big numbers. So it's a real freaking problem. Like this idea, what I'm saying. Like this idea that the White House and Democratic lawmakers can just pretend that this is some kind of like isolated issue, Republicans are blowing it out of proportion, is just total bunk.
Yep.
And by the way, the West is doing slightly better with some things being regularly unavailable. But in the Northeast, 27.5 said regularly. In the Midwest, 25.8 said regularly. In the South, 29 said regularly. In the West, 19 said. So there is a little bit with regular shortages that the West, is not as experiencing. But they will, is my point. Like this will happen. And across the board, by region, 44 to 46 said yes occasionally. So it's a widespread issue, my friend. It's a widespread issue. Even in the West, where it's a little better, we're still talking about over 60% saying it. What do you think about this?
Well, yeah, and they want to tell you that it's not really what you're seeing. Everybody's experiencing this all over the country, as you just pointed out. So, yeah, the messaging is so out of whack with this administration. You just tell you that's not what you're really seeing. It's insane. But they're going to continue with that. What else are they going to do? I mean, I saw your numbers earlier about inflation, and that's going to continue to go up
Crazy.
as it being a big issue for people. So they can try to spin this all they want, but this is kind of when the rubber meets the road, when you just reality is reality.
Yeah, here's price increases. We'd similarly like to know whether your finances have been impacted by supply chain issues. Have you personally experienced price increases for each of the following products? Totally, 52% said yes, significant increases with meat and poultry. Another 31.5 said yes, modest increases. And by region here, when it comes to price increases, the West did not display some disparity like they did in actual shortages. Increases are across the board. I mean, folks, look at how consistent that is. Look at that. That's a freaking red flag, Don. That's a major problem, Don.
Huge.
I mean, that's 80+% of the country. So yes, it's real. Yes, it's happening. And meat and poultry is among. What was the other one, Laura, that was also bad? I believe it was fruit and vegetables, which is, I mean, they're all bad. Look, I mean, and again, really across the board. The Northeast helps me explain why Biden's approval fell in the Northeast in the last two polls. That was like, it is the most liberal area of the country. And that was the one where like 60% constantly, even when he began to fall into the mid 40s and the low 40s, 60% in the Northeast were like, no, we approve, 58, 56, we approve. He just completely collapsed in the fall. And then here he's, let me just take a look by region, Biden's approval. He's still doing better in the Northeast. Yeah, man, it's like 43%. So he's down now, with 50, 40, about 52, roughly saying they disapprove. So now he's even underwater in the Northeast. What I was trying to say earlier, Don, is I don't know how he fixes this, because he's not going to stop the variance from coming, my friend. He sure as hell can't get a grip on inflation. Everything he wants to do would worsen inflation.
Everything he is doing is
how's he going to fix this?
He's not. He created it. So yeah, he's not going. The only way he could fix it is by doing a pivot. Like back in the old Bill Clinton days, where he pivoted, started working with Republicans. This guy's not going to do that. This guy's creating all these things, and he still continues to push for his Build Back Better plan, which is obviously going to go the wrong direction. So he's created all this, Rich. I mean, he can't fix it. He can't fix it because he actually created it. And so he would have to admit, hey, I was wrong. Should have done this stuff. We shouldn't be doing this stuff. He's not going to do that.
Yeah, Don, I have this, I have a handful of trolls on social media, no matter where I go. And they're the same people. And they have it in their heads that the pandemic is responsible for inflation. And I want to nip that in the butt right now. Okay. And actually, if you give me 1 second to do so, I will, because I just accidentally clicked the wrong thing. But yeah, the bottom line is the consumer price index leveled out under Donald Trump. It did. This is something that absolutely was created, if you are to believe the ISM, the Institute for Supply Management. If you're to believe the PMIs, they have panel responses for the PMIs. I mean, you can literally read what these industries are telling you, why inflation, why it was going to happen, right? So, we were talking about the CEO of Goya, but I mean, on the panel responses, you can get all different industries. And they were saying it is this constant threat, this looming threat of one too many arbitrary cases, right, coming in on you. And if you look here, we can let's go to 2018, just to give a good impression. We'll go to the 1st of 2018 all the way to today. And folks, you can see it clearly here. Here's the shutdown under Donald Trump, okay? From February. And notice, by the way, with Barack Obama, everybody put their error bans on hold. The recession's over now. All throughout the election, that band remained when we at PPD took ours off, because we knew it was an artificially induced recession and that it was over by May. And they kept their bans all the way through. And they backdated these changes, folks. And now all of their recession end dates are right after the shutdown, when we first told you that I got episodes to prove it. Even the Fed here, the St. Louis Fed, who has all of these indicators everyone likes to look, until Joe Biden, not at the election itself, because there were still questions surrounding the election, when it became clear that Joe Biden was going to be inaugurated, they put the error bands back. It was grayed out all the way up until December. And then they changed it. That's the level of deception, Don, that we deal with. And I'm saying this on purpose because I'm leading up to something about media deception here. But you can clearly see that the CPI fell during the shutdown. After the shutdown, it rose again, but then stabilized and began rising at a historically normal rate. It was until Joe Biden took the reins in January of 2020 that the rate of increase began to skyrocket. 2021, excuse me. And that is not my opinion. That is a fact. That is a fact. All right? Your truth does not outweigh facts. This is a fact. The Biden administration provoked and caused this. And if you're to believe the panel responses at ISM, it was the constant threat looming over them of more regulation, more draconian measures to stop the pandemic, the fact that they had big blue states resist opening the economies just to hurt Donald Trump's chances of election, that bottlenecked the supply chain. It caused a bottleneck. You can't turn it on and off whenever the hell you want. Whitmer, Newsom, Cuomo, lingering like that did serious damage to the supply chain. And it's right there in the panel responses. You can read them yourself. Don't wait for the media to tell you what they feel like they want to tell you. It's right there. It is simply false that this was inevitable. If Donald Trump was reelected, it wouldn't have happened. I can say that with a straight face, 100% confident. If Donald Trump had been allowed to serve a second term, let me put it like that instead. That's more accurate. This would not have happened. It's a fact. And you can't dispute my chart. So all you have is your corny little talking points you copied and pasted from your favorite Jim Cramer or your favorite Trump-hating fake economist. All right. That's all you can do. You can't dispute the actual data. It's right in front of you. I just showed it to you. I didn't fudge the St. Louis Fed's chart. That's their chart. It was rising again at a normal rate of increase after it recovered to the mean. Then it blew up when Joe Biden took office. End of story. Sorry. Don't hate on me because that is what happened. And speaking of which, do you see this crap? Because I love talking to you about this. You're a military guy too, like me. Do you see this crap with Ukraine, Don? Mm-hmm. And Joe Biden's phone call with Ukraine? Yeah, green screen just crapped out. And then what CNN chooses to remove from their website, their social media. You can't find the Jake Tapper segment anywhere unless you go to Jack Posobiec, who recorded it, before they took it down. This is like North Korean level state media garbage.
Yep. Absolutely.
What do you think? I got to just get your whole take on that, and then also what's going on with Ukraine, because this is unbelievable disconnect between the Ukrainians and us.
It's the whole purpose of why I do what I do. I've always said this. It's not just the stuff that they make up, right? That they put out there in the Russia collusion. One major example. It's not just the stuff that they make up. They put out there. They construct this truth. It's the stuff it's the stuff they block you from. So I'm under attack right now. I got YouTube. I got a warning 2 days ago. Pulled a video. They pulled the video of General Valley interviewing Kash Patel, because what does he know about serving in the administration? He only did. So some kid sitting around at YouTube went, yeah, I don't like this. I don't think that's true, because he would know more about it, serving in the administration, than somebody that actually served in the administration. So this morning I pulled my thing up. Oh, I got my first community strike. And they pulled down another episode. And that was the episode of Paul Valley interviewing Lee Greenwood, because what does Lee Greenwood know about touring America and being a musician? This is where we're at. So it's not just the stuff that they make up, Rich. It's the stuff that they steer you away from. It's this whole disinformation, misinformation thing that they do. They're the ones spreading it, right? Everything they're saying pretty much on a daily basis anymore is a lie.
Biggest spreaders of
flat out
disinformation.
Lie.
They are the biggest spreaders of misinformation.
Yep. What it is it's approved information and unapproved information. So let's be very clear about what exactly is going on here. This is big tech cracking down on everybody. This is what they do. I'm in their crosshairs this week. So I'm quite sure tomorrow they'll find another strike. They could find something wrong with every single video I make.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I didn't mention too, both of these interviews were back in late October, mid-November time frame.
Yeah, this is a persecution.
Just getting around to it right now. So
yeah, Don, it's funny because, and no doubt, all of the election stuff, we had Patrick Witt, who's running in Georgia's 10th congressional district, on earlier this week to discuss how Facebook would not run his ad because why? What did he say? I was involved. I was helping to stop, the steal, he said, and they don't like that, right? So if they care about election disinformation, Don, then why does Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Mark Elias, Jake Tapper, Potato Head Brian Stelter, why do they have a Twitter account still? Why are they allowed to post their nonsense? They literally convinced a psychopath that Donald Trump colluded with Vladimir Putin to steal the 2016 election. That's why Steve Scalise was shot along with 4 others. And Facebook knows that because they raced to take down his profile before anyone could see it. We screenshotted it. We got it. But that man thought he was doing a service to the country because he was fully convinced by a lie. A lie Hillary Clinton still runs around to this day, as do many others. By the way, the head of the House Intelligence Committee at the time, Adam Schiff. Why does he still have a Twitter account? Joe Biden just last week said that if we don't support a federal takeover of the elections, then 2022 is going to be illegitimate.
Right. And that's allowed.
There is no evidence to support voter suppression. None. None. Zero.
But that's allowed information.
That's allowed information. Are we allowed to talk about the Pennsylvania judge that just struck down universal, no excuse, absentee ballot? Oops. We already had an election where they were able to do it. This is part of the real big lie, Don. And I'm, going off here. Probably, I'm still doing it because the fact of the matter is, 2 months we talked about this. States like Pennsylvania never even had early voting. Not only did they immediately go over a 35 to 60 day period, transform their state in a universal mail-in, they never even had early voting. It wasn't approved. Democrats tried for years, and the voters of Pennsylvania said, no. It just failed in New York. You think it's going to pass in Pennsylvania? Good luck with that. In Wisconsin, same thing. Same damn thing, basically. So who was full of crap and who wasn't? Those were not legal. End of story. Because there's a pandemic, you don't get around constitutional government, Don.
Right.
Because there's a pandemic? You completely circumvent the Constitution? You completely circumvent state constitutions? You put moratoriums on codified, established state law? That was the argument we were all making. We were right. They were wrong. And Jocelyn Benson in Michigan. We didn't need the judge to tell us that. But that was not legal for her to unilaterally change the election like that. She did not have that authority. And you know who pisses me off really, though? The judges, Don, who just sit there because I know what it's like to be, where you're at right now. And it sucks because it's like, 6 months ago, a conspiracy 6 months ago, a conspiracy theory turns out to be fact. Everything from the origin of the virus to this. And it's like, it's not approved 6 months ago. But now it's right. And those strikes never go away.
Mhm.
Or they, in YouTube, they say they'll fall off. But once you have that warning,
Mhm.
they can hit you with the strike whenever. And look what they did to Dan Bongino this week. He had a strike for simply quoting Anthony Fauci. That's it. That's all he did. He quoted
Right.
Anthony Fauci, Don. And then he posted a video saying, I'm leaving YouTube. And they acted like a bunch of little babies, like high school students or something. You didn't break up with me. I broke up with you.
Mhm.
You didn't break up with me. I broke up with you. This is the maturity level we're dealing with.
Mhm.
I don't, it's nuts, my friend. It's nuts.
Yeah.
And it's not
Yeah.
going to end. So what's the plan? You're going to lean on Rumble more, I imagine, like everybody else.
Yeah, but that's one of the things. I've been trying to drive people to Rumble, and it's like, hey, go check us out on Rumble because we don't have to worry about this stuff. But the reality is, my largest viewership comes from YouTube, so it's a tough thing. But yeah, I'm going to forge ahead. I'm not going to let them shut me down. So we're gonna keep
Everybody
doing our
go
show
subscribe to Don's Rumble channel right now. It doesn't take much. Go to Don's Rumble channel, Don Smith Show on Rumble, and subscribe. It does, because he's not kidding. Everyone's mad about this, and in fact, I wholeheartedly believe I agree with Patrick Witt, who said it. That's great and everything, and it's great there are alternatives.
Mhm.
But the fact of the matter is that doesn't allow them to do this. So what they're essentially doing when they have approved information and information that's not approved, doesn't matter if it's true or not.
Mhm.
I don't know where other people are on this. I've been saying this for a long time. Section 230 is great. Fine, whatever. Go after them on Section 230. These are in-kind campaign contributions. They're trying to help the Democratic Party. They're giving the Democratic Party a gift. And this is a public square, and that's an in-kind campaign contribution. If I tried to give Patrick Witt a poll for free, I would get charged with illegal in-kind campaign contributions. Rightfully so. Giving somebody and their narrative is a boost on is no different. It's no different. You're still providing them a service for free. I'm not a lawyer, but I've been in politics for a long time. I don't know where the hell everybody is on this angle, because this is the right angle. This is state level stuff.
I just think back to, I mean, for me, okay, so my story goes back to, it's all started on YouTube. YouTube was the place, right? It was the place you could go and you could talk about these things. Nobody was really doing this kind of stuff back then. I was making like short little videos, and then I had the blog talk thing that I was doing, the regular show. But I was making these videos, and it was like there wasn't a lot of that out there. But it was the place you could go, and you could say, "Wow, here's a place where I can put my message out. I don't have to be, Walter Cronkite or something. I can just put this stuff out there." And it was a great place for free speech. Look where we are today. I mean,
that's what they promised.
Yeah, that's what they promised. That's what it was at the beginning. And now it's the speech is a little too free, and we better yank this off here. So they're literally just screwing with me right now. I mean, I had nothing 2 days ago. Bam, you get a warning. Well, don't worry, this is only just a warning, and we pulled your video down though. So I appealed it. They came back and said, sorry, I don't know what to tell you. And then boom, this morning I wake up, go there again, and here's now I got a strike. Like I said, I'm sure I'll have my second strike tomorrow, and then however long they've got this in the algorithm, I'll be shut down completely by Monday. So yeah, we're done with YouTube. Screw them. I'm sick and tired of all this stuff. We're going to go to Rumble, so please, I hope everybody joins us there. Go in the chat, and yeah, just join us there. I mean, that's the new bastion of free speech, and hopefully that doesn't go away, because that's the thing. What happens when these alternatives get shut down, and we've just got nowhere to go? You're just, I mean, we've got locals in Rumble right now. Facebook has been let me stream on there as well, so they haven't shut me down yet. And they did take action on that guy who kept claiming ownership of all my videos.
You should tell people what Facebook did, because they were enabling an Islamic extremist to get his message out. Yeah. So they're concerned about us questioning whether or not the actions taken over a pandemic were legal before an election. They're furious over that, but they're not furious that this guy used your channel, your show, your page to push Islamic extremism. Tell people about this, Don.
So yeah, okay. So I started streaming on Facebook, and I had this radical extremist guy, and he was too, man. You go to his Go to his Facebook page, and the stuff was just like, you allow this. They're questioning my stuff. I got a thing from Facebook a couple of weeks before this started happening, and I got a thing where they did the fact check on me. I described my show. I said, here's the show. It's going to be on Saturday at noon Eastern time. Here's the guests. Said nothing about what we would talk about, nothing about COVID or any of that stuff. And I get a fact check. There's nothing in that. Yeah. There was nothing in there. It was a show. It was a show post. Here's who's on. Here's when it starts. Nothing. Anyway. So I start streaming on Facebook, and this radical extremist, and I went to his site, and I'm like, wow. I mean, it was really bad stuff, and they're cool with that. Apparently, they're perfectly cool with this guy apparently recruiting jihadists. And so what he was doing was he was claiming ownership of my video. So it's me talking, and this guy's saying, the radical extremist, he owns it. This is mine. So what that does is it puts a tag up there. So when people are watching the show, see more videos by the radical terrorist. So that pulls people into his site, and he does. So every single show, within 5 minutes of the show starting, boom, he claims ownership. Here's the thing that people need to understand. They threaten me. Here's a person saying that he owns my content, a person I don't know. Obviously, we don't share much in common. I'm doing a show. I'm talking to people, and he owns it. So they allowed him to keep doing that every week, and then I have to dispute it to get the thing taken down, so it drives people to his radical recruiting Facebook page, which they're perfectly okay with.
Which they, right. I mean, which they obviously looked at each and every time you put that request in.
Check this out. So they threaten me every single time. If I appeal it, they come back and they say, are you sure you want to appeal this? Because if we rule that this guy owns this video, we'll shut you down. They're threatening me, not the person lying about owning the video who's running a recruiting station for jihadis. He's cool. He's totally cool. It's me that's the problem. And if I'm wrong, they're going to, so I'm sending back to him. Are you threatening this guy? Is there, and just go and claim ownership to every single video this guy's ever made. Maybe I should do that. And then finally, you and I talked about it after it happened like 10 times in a row, 10 shows in a row. We talked about it, and I got back to him after that, and I was just like, okay, listen, you check out this person's site. This is who you are promoting and defending in this whole thing. So every time they came back and they said, oh yeah, okay, it is your video, it's not the radical jihadist video, they would come back, and then I would get a thing from him saying that he accepted the outcome. They did nothing to this guy. This guy's just going around so he can draw people into his Facebook page to recruit them, and Facebook is actually actively supporting this. That's what just blew me away. It hasn't happened since I sent that. I was like, what are you guys doing, man? You're literally promoting this guy recruiting jihadists. First of all, I don't think his page should probably be up. I don't know. That's your call. They have no problem pulling me down. They'll pull my stuff down. Oh, you're in Facebook jail, and this guy's not going to Facebook jail. He's fat and happy recruiting jihadis. It's a crazy world, Rich. I mean, this is what we're living in. This is what we're up against when it comes to big tech. They would side with the jihadists over us.
That's an embarrassment. And the major issue here, Don, when all is said and done, the major issue here is what Tucker Carlson says all the time. 50 years ago, businesses in this country, you got to where they are because of this country. Mm-hmm. They hate this country. Mm-hmm. They hate it. Mm-hmm. They're not pro-America. They take all of the advantages of being an American company, yet they evade taxes and they promote anti-Americanism at home and abroad. This is it's multinationalism, mm-hmm. and it's like leads to these crazy worldviews that somehow this guy is like the victim here. It's you're the threat that has to be removed, which is not surprising if you understand where they're coming from. But at the same time, there is nothing that the American taxpayer or American law should do in response to how they are that promotes them or benefits them or gives them some kind of an advantage or privilege or anything. They should be, the government should be hostile to these companies. I mean, they should not be in bed with them. This should be hostile to them. They have other interests that do not align with American interests. And that's it. I mean, in a nutshell. Yeah, I guess it's 1:45, and I got a something after 2:00. So let's burn through some stuff here. You know Wisconsin, you know it well. This is what I was talking about earlier in the show. The Marquette poll is a joke. It's a joke. It's been a joke for years. It got even more of a joke under Donald Trump. It was great for a while. It was very good for a long time. But like so many others under Donald Trump, they just completely lost their minds. Wisconsin is hard to poll. That is true, because it isn't like Pennsylvania or Wisconsin, which Pennsylvania always Donald Trump polled at that was his strongest of the three. But yet both times in 16 and 20, it was not. Wisconsin was the most pro-Trump state out of the three of them. And yet you would never know that from the polling. Don, there is zero chance that Biden has a 43 to 33 10-point lead over Donald Trump in the state of Wisconsin. This is just, it's more of what we're just talking about. It's continuation of what we're talking about. These people have no shame. They just hate America first so much that this is what we're left with. And you know Wisconsin better than most people.
Yep.
Do you have any shred in your body that believes that poll?
No, not at all. Nor did I the last time when they did it in the 2020, right? I mean, they said they gave Biden a 10-point lead in that one too, and all this. Yeah, no, not at all. This is what they're doing now, and this is why I always commend what you do at Big Data Poll. You don't poll with a preconceived notion of what you want it to be. These people do. So when they're given these poll numbers, that's what they wish it was. Right? You always know that that's what they wish it was, and they found a way to tweak this and tweak this and tweak this and make it what they wanted it to be. So it's like all the stuff that they do with the climate stuff, right? Where they go and they do these multi-million-dollar studies on this and that. They know what the result is. Nobody's researching anything or really crunching any real numbers. They're just creating something that fits their narrative, and that's what they're doing with polls like that.
So, I mean, it's just to me, it's outrageous. Trump has led in all but 2 polls in the last 36 national polls. And yet somehow in the state of Wisconsin, one of his strongest states, he's behind by 10 points. I mean, this is ludicrous, Don. Not to mention, we've done the voter file analysis on it. Wisconsin is like R4. Look at their sample. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's what they want it to be.
Yes.
Gone are the days of D+4s and 6 and 2s and 8s, and those are gone in Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. And by the way, they were gone in 2020. The electorate was R+1. It's going to be like R+4 next time. I mean, it's just not reality.
Yep.
They have no shame, none. Mm-hmm. I have to pass on the question about Tennessee 5. I have talks with somebody, and I really can't comment on that. But I'll throw it to Don. Let him. You think Morgan's a better candidate than Robbie Starbuck in Tennessee 5? A lot of people in the Trump orbit were deeply upset about that. It was like a preemptive endorsement that if Morgan decides to run, she worked for Trump at the State Department. Trump's very much like that. He gives his loyalty to people who worked for him. However, everyone I know who is America First, Don, and that really was in the fight, they don't like her. At all. And they say that, she was a blocker, essentially one of those people in the State Department who was loyal to like Pompeo and not loyal to Donald Trump. And they were really upset with this endorsement. They were like, what on earth is he thinking? Meanwhile, Robbie, young, Hispanic, America First, at the end of the day, Don, faces do matter, so it's like if you had to choose who you wanted to represent you as a Republican, then, you want to go with the white elitist woman, or do you want to go with the Hispanic young man who was not raised in privilege? So, what do you think? I don't want to say to you, I just wanted to characterize it like that, but I got to really hold off on my own personal view. Yeah, what do you think?
Well, it sounds like there's a bit of some controversy around this on what was really going on. Was there really a preemptive, I will endorse this person? I think this is one of the things that we've all got to be careful of is this is one where I'd like to kind of see how it all plays out. But I understand I mean, if all those things are true, and yes, he really was going to go that direction, that was kind of one of the things I was worried about going into this election cycle with President Trump, was the kingmaker aspect of it, and everything that goes with that, the palace intrigue side of it, right? So I mean, that was always my concern on this side of it, is the drama that they're going to create around all this stuff. But I've heard conflicting reports. I heard that he was, and I've heard they backed off. I heard they never were going to in the first place. So I kind of need a little more data on that to know. But I agree with everything you just said about the quality of the candidates and who would you rather have.
Yeah, I think fair point too, to be like, to wait, wait and see how it irons out. Washington State, I'm not bullish on that right now. So that's just, somebody had asked who do you think could win it? I'm just not bullish on it at all. Some states are going to be incredibly difficult for Republicans no matter what. And the fact is, it's one of those states, Pacific Midwest states, where you just have like a very blue population tell the rest of the state how they're going to elect people. I mean, that's it. Governor's races can be a little bit different. But still, at a senatorial level, at a federal level, I just don't. I don't see that at this point. I really don't. And then somebody wanted your take on Alabama for Richard Shelby's seat. There's a lot of ads, he says, in his area running a Mike Durant, but he doesn't trust him at all. And that lots of Alabamans are falling for it, though, because of his military service. I always point out the McCain thing. Now, look, you have somebody like Crenshaw in Texas. I always worry about these veteran Republicans who come out pretending to be blazing conservatives, and then they end up just neocons. Tom Cotton, I was very skeptical of, but he earned it over time. Mm-hmm. Military service is commendable, but not a reason to put somebody in the public office. I totally agree, Carshow. Totally agree. What is your take on that race? And there is somebody else running there too, a woman, by the way. But go ahead. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I think right now that's a little bit of a mess out there, and I'd like to see something get solidified there. There's still time. I mean, we're at this phase now where pretty much everybody who's running should be out there doing their thing right now, but there's still time for others to get in. But I think it's a bit of a mess out there, and I really would like to see them get that straightened out, because that's when we should certainly win. So I've got a lot of concerns about that, and for all the reasons you just mentioned.
And why is Biden, how badly underwater he is on other issues, why is he still overperforming on the COVID issue? He's underwater, but he's still overperforming on it. Don, that's a good question. I tend to think that people just don't like to admit they're wrong. That's where I come from on that. Because they tell us they disapprove of him. They tell us they disapprove him on every other issue, yet on COVID, there's still an overlap of people who refuse to admit that because they hinge their entire vote on it. I mean, that's for many of these people. They hinge their entire vote. Do you want to admit that you were duped that badly? And now that you find out, I mean, he was tossed off the H1N1 task force. The guy's totally incompetent and senile. There's nothing that Joe Biden could do that Donald Trump wouldn't have done. In fact, there's more death under Joe Biden, even though he has treatments, supposed vaccines. He's got treatments. He's got all sorts of tools that Donald Trump did not have at his disposal. Donald Trump gave it to him, though, handed it to him on a silver platter, but you still believed it, right? I mean, what do you think, Don? I really think that's it.
Well, yeah, and I think certainly nobody wants to admit they were duped, right? So here was the guy who was going to shut down the pandemic, and it didn't happen. Not only did it not happen, as you mentioned, there's been more deaths under Joe Biden than there was under Donald Trump. So, but it was their whole campaign. What else did he run on? He didn't run on anything else. He didn't run on, by the way,
lies. Charlottesville hoaxes.
By the way, I'm going to completely screw up Afghanistan. I'm going to create inflation. Cost of living is going to skyrocket. You won't be able to get anything in the stores. I mean, he didn't run on any of those things. He ran on shutting down the pandemic. So if you believe that, you bought into that, you kind of got to hold on to that, because there's so many. Everything else is bad. Even that's bad. But they've got to hold on to something for it all to make sense, right? So they don't feel like a complete dork. So, I mean, I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I do too. I really believe that. Why isn't is it possible to move toward Republicans and the black vote is permanent, or do you think that it could go back after Biden? I don't think it's permanent. If Republicans, if America First loses this fight, it's not going to be permanent. It's going to go back to low single digits, and that's it. These are working men, younger men, and women, apparently. I didn't even see that coming. Trump doubled his vote among black women. And Trump overperforms Republicans. Don, you know this. I've shared lots of polling data with you. Donald Trump overperforms Republican candidates in the black vote. So they're not subscribing to be Republicans right now. I think that's very clear. They don't like what they see from Democrats. They think Democrats need to earn their vote, but they like Donald Trump because he's not really a politician. They don't really view him as a Republican. So, he does better with, same thing with Hispanic men. They're not signing on to be Republicans. A lot of people are just, even if they are saying, all right, I'm going to vote Republican this time, it's like by default. It's because it's like, who am I going to vote that's not a Democrat? That's what's happening here. So I think the answer is, yeah, it's likely it'll go back, in fact, unless Republicans do the right thing, do the smart thing, not the, smart thing. We'll see. What do you think, Don?
Yeah, it always comes down to messaging. So if it's permanent, it's because the Republicans came out and started making the messages that they should be making to the American people, right? I mean, this is so crazy. This whole thing is so crazy that the racism right now, it's insulting to suggest that Black Americans don't know how to get an ID or don't have an ID. Well, then they're not participating in society, right? So they need to be more aggressive. They need to talk about why their policies are better. I mean, and so I think that's the thing, that Donald Trump was the first one really in my lifetime that I saw do that from the Republican Party, to come out and say, you talk about the unemployment levels, and he would just keep, bam, he would hammer that. That's what created all this. And the Black America is frustrated too with everything that's going on with Joe Biden. So Republicans need to get out. They need to make a strong message, and they need to explain the positions and how it's not about your skin colors. Look at this. The SCOTUS opening, right? Yeah. So there's a SCOTUS opening. What's the first thing? Before he even said it,
black female.
It had to be a black female. But that's racist. That's racist.
It's totally racist.
It's insulting.
Totally racist. It has to be a black female on the Supreme Court, but we got to send white males to go fight in Ukraine for his crackhead son to have enough money. Look, I'm not making fun of anybody's addiction. You guys know how I feel about that. I'm simply saying that this is what this is about. This is about Hunter Biden proving his worth. That's what they paid him all the money to do. All right. And this is for the Biden family fortune. This has nothing to do with U.S. and not alone other Western elites. It has nothing to do whatsoever with American foreign policy. Why isn't the story about Biden resettling criminal aliens via secret flights a bigger story? Should Trump and the GOP be making more noise about this? What do you think, Don? I mean, immigration increased as a top voting issue this poll.
Right.
It almost overtook COVID, bro. It almost overtook COVID.
Here's what I would say to all the Republicans out there, especially those that are running for office. Do something. You have a multitude of things you can pounce on right now and just say, see, here it is. So I don't know why they're not doing that. I don't know why they're not fighting, because that's what people want to see, is they want fighters, right? I mean, so I don't know why that's not happening. But they need to pounce on all this stuff, pounce on immigration, pounce on the supply chain, the inflation, just everything is a complete mess. The pandemic's a mess. Everything is. So
everything is a mess. Yeah.
Pick one at least and go after that. I'd go after all of them. If I was any candidate I'm working with, we're going after all of them. But say something, do something. That's,
Yeah, one of our guys said he's going to be on an impeachment committee over that. I mean, this is not legitimate behavior from a president of the United States. This is not legitimate behavior. This is a betrayal, a total betrayal. Nobody voted for their communities to be radically changed like this. Nobody did. Nobody gave their consent to do this. And people apparently oppose it overwhelmingly, by the way, including Hispanics. So, I don't understand why Republicans are so damn timid over all the time. And this is a good question, Tony is suggesting. Based on what you have seen or experienced in the past year or two, will you change your voting behavior? That's a good one, Tony. I like that. I like that. Adding something like that and then seeing which way they would change their voting behavior too. But I think, some of that we can actually discern, Don, by knowing their 2020 vote history with how much, people, are changing their vote now. So, That's a good question, but I do think there's a way we can kind of pull that out anyway from people. So, for instance, right now, among those who voted for Joe Biden, 21.1% disapprove of the job he's doing. Among those who voted for Joe Biden, 7% would vote. See, here's the thing: if you voted for Donald Trump, 1.9% said they would vote for Joe Biden. That's it, less than 2%. That is less than the sampling era of the poll. But 1, 2, 3, over about 3 times that amount says they'll vote for Donald Trump, and they voted for Joe Biden before. That's a net swing, a net serious swing. By the way, other candidates, only less than the same amount, 1.9% said they'd vote for Joe Biden. 23% said they would change their vote to Donald Trump. On the generic ballot, Joe Biden's voters, 9% will vote Republican. Trump's voters, only 3% will vote Democrat. Joe Jorgensen's voters are going Republican by 10 points, and other candidate voters are going Republican by 20 points. This is a freaking blowout. That's what I'm saying. This is a blowout. To get any poll, to publish any poll showing otherwise at this point, after Matt at Insider Advantage is like +6 Republican, I think Trafalgar's a little out there, but it's like +14 or whatever came out. That's just crazy to me. I get nervous when I put out like Republican +7. Like but it's feasible. It is feasible. Some really funny questions here. Who wins a 10K race, Don or Rich? We both fall down and drink a beer after a half mile. I'm grossly out of shape, buddy. That's my New Year's resolution, though, and I did get all my supplements, and I'm gonna do that. And it was just like 4 or 5 years ago, right, Laura? How long ago? I was pretty damn buff, and now I'm feeling like a noodle. And I'm over it. And especially I'm like having a midlife crisis, right? You know it. Like, yeah, Don knows. All right. For people who don't know, I turned 40 and I'm having a freaking midlife crisis. I'm not dealing with it well. I'm gonna get big. I'm gonna get like GNC huge, and I'm gonna probably buy a motorcycle. Okay. Sorry, Laura. All right. I'm having a problem. I don't like it.
Well, that's gonna be good for me in the 10K.
Yeah, no kidding. Stumpy little legs like a tree. Can't do it, man.
So just to be clear, you got the supplements. You just not.
I started.
Oh, you started.
I
Okay,
started.
okay.
Yeah, I did. I did.
Right.
I was sick. I was sick, and I actually started them at the tail end of that. I actually think they helped. One of them has quercetin in it, and I was like, oh. Yeah, that's good because it's good for COVID, Yep. Sorry. Not allowed to say that because it's cheap and accessible. Actually, it's hard to get now, apparently. But not for us because I have somebody medically who gets it for us. But apparently, it is hard to find. Why does a state like South Carolina, which I assume is pretty conservative, elect Republicans like Graham, Haley, and Mace? Mace is South Carolina's one. That's always a close district. I know somebody, Don, you do too, that we were urging to run, and I think he would, and I know he's listening right now because he watches the show, and if not, his wife is. All right. I hope you do it because you're going to cross your Mace. All right. Because there are people now starting to ask that question. Lindsey Graham could have been successfully primary. Donald Trump stepped in, and I'm sorry, he did it with Mitch McConnell too. There are viable alternatives. And the president backed Lindsey Graham. He backed Mitch McConnell. They would not have been reelected if Donald Trump backed their challengers. And Republicans lost that opportunity. I hate to say it, right, Don? I mean, what else? And Haley ran as a conservative in South Carolina. She didn't run as a moderate. She ran as a fiscal and social conservative, right? I remember her campaign like it was yesterday. She was anti-gay marriage, anti-transgender bathroom, pro-life, no spending bill, constitutional amendment to balance the budget, all sorts of stuff. She became a neocon. And that's sadly what happens to a lot of these people. They get in and they just get in with that crowd, man. I mean, the consultant crowd and all their, friends, the Bushies, and, they just say it. Look at John Roberts, bro.
Right.
Guy was a Catholic schoolboy.
Yeah, I think I mean, obviously, one of the things, and you and I both have dealt with this before, and we'll deal with it for as long as we're doing this, doing politics, is each. Okay, so you've got the national, so you've got the RNC, right? So they decide, or they've always been able to kind of at least strongly influence, if not flat out decide. That's why we ended up with McCain. That's why we had Romney. That's we all know the drill. Trump broke that mold. So that was a big deal, and only because they were vulnerable at the time. But my point is this: each state has that as well. So each state has its own hierarchy, and it's all these people that sit around and they decide, well, this person should run, and no, we're not going to help this person, as opposed to what their true purpose is, which is to, oh, okay, here's a new candidate running. Yes, let's work with them, let's help them. That's not what they do. They're scavengers. They take over campaigns just so they can fundraise off it without any intentions of actually helping that candidate win. They just want to raise money because they're going after a big name candidate. Michigan, I'm looking at you. South Carolina, obviously, there's a little bit of a cabal there as well. So they're the kingmakers, right? So they decide who is and who isn't, and that impacts people's decisions on whether they're going to run or not. So you've got really strong candidates who could win, but they're not going to have the wind at their back when it comes to their state parties. So, I guess that's the best way to answer it, is if they're strong enough, like they are in South Carolina, then they're going to choose. They're going to choose who these candidates are, the Lindsey Grahams, on and on and on.
Yeah. I guess one more. I got a meeting with my son's teachers. Everyone's got the parent conference. Dreary or Spider, I see you. I'd ask the same of governor's races for Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan regarding the Republican primary and the general election. Michigan is a little bit in a disarray. So the establishment wanted Craig, and people in Trump's orbit said he's not strong enough. It won't work out. He's fizzled quite a bit, actually. So there may be a replacement there coming in. We'll see how that goes. In Wisconsin, I actually think they got some good choices there. Don, what do you think?
Oh yeah, definitely, and that's one of those states where they don't play the heavy hand. To the example I was just given here earlier, that's one of the states that they seem to be pretty good the way they operate and don't try to control it all, and let the people kind of do their picking and choosing on that. So yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting races all across the board, and I think for me this is the most active and I'm watching closely on a daily basis when it comes to this upcoming election cycle. It's so huge. The governorships are super important. Everything is Senate, but even down to the local level, the school board. I mean, how often do we sit around and say, well, the school board vote's really important? Well, it is all across this country. Is. So yeah, this is an exciting time to be involved in politics.
We just had a meeting, and believe me, they don't like it, because everybody's showing up to these meetings now. And they remember empty rooms where they could just do their business and be done with it. They're like terrified over this. They're like, holy crap. Yeah, they should be, because, they were, they're being told literally, you work for us, you SOBs. Who the hell do you think you are? And they, one guy flatly got up and said, I want to thank you. I was complacent. It's my fault. Now I'm going to run against you. By the way, my name's this. He turned around to the audience, and I'm going to run to replace this son of a. And it was great. The guy was like, he was scared. He's like, damn, I'm going to lose. Yeah, you are, actually, and you probably shouldn't have been gone a long time ago. Yeah, and in Wisconsin, speaking of which, I mean, look, you have somebody like Tony Fabrizio, good record, solid reputation. Not a big fan of Donald Trump, even though he's done some work for him. But not a big fan, showing Donald Trump clobbering Joe Biden in Wisconsin. So you have just two totally different worlds, and, who would I believe? Marquette, who's blown every election in 3 cycles, or look, they thought Ayers was going to run away with it. They showed a tightening margin in the end. That race was barely decided. I mean, Walker almost won his third term, but they didn't give Walker that kind of chance at all. It was like 6 points, 8 points, and then finally at the end it closed a little bit. It's crazy. So basically, good audience on Getter too, which is great. That's great. If you guys didn't hear us before, Don Smith show, Don Smith show on Rumble. Go to Rumble now, sign up, subscribe. It is hard to migrate people over there. I've been trying to migrate people from Twitter. I got almost 250,000 followers on Twitter, and I got like 20-something thousand on Getter. It's hard to do it. People don't want to move over. You got to get them over.
Yep.
You got to get them over. Because Don's right. This isn't going to last forever. And once they get you in their sights, that's a wrap. I'm telling you, it's a wrap. It's sad, but it's true.
I predict they'll have me completely shut down by Monday, Tuesday of next week. I'll just no longer exist, like they did to me on Twitter and many other places. I've been doing this getting canceled thing for a long time now. It's old. It's getting old.
You say where it's okay to be a conservative.
Yep.
And that's it. That's it.
That's the problem.
That's all, man. Because they're like, it's not okay here.
It's not okay.
Not on YouTube.
Right.
Not on Facebook. Not on Twitter.
Yep.
There's just going to be a dumb echo chamber soon. That's what they're going to be left with, and they're going to be left wondering, how the hell did we get shellacked like this in 2022? If Donald Trump comes back, they're going to be. I know a lot of people are facing reality right now. They are. But there will be these people, because by that time it'll be an echo chamber, and they'll be like, how on earth did this happen again? Because you don't listen to people. You just try to persecute and shut them down. And that doesn't work. It never works, Don. It doesn't even work. And it didn't work fully in Mao's China. Pol Pot eventually ran into problems. Russia. It just doesn't really work. And this is America, where we still have our principles ingrained still in much of our DNA. At least I would say 30% of the country really gets what this country is about. Well, the revolution, best estimates are like 22, 25 to maybe 30, 33% that actually supported the revolution and did, so it doesn't take a full understanding in the population. I don't see, if they couldn't pull off those tyrannies in all those other places, I don't see how in the hell you're going to be able to do it long term in this country. I just good luck, and that's why they're trying to breed us out. It's true. They're trying to replace us, and they're trying to pervert the minds of our children because this is their game. They play to win. Well,
look what they're doing here. Okay, so here you've got YouTube shutting down a major general, a guy who served in the same position.
How dare they?
How
dare they?
As Douglas MacArthur. This guy served in the same position that MacArthur served in back at the day. Major general, 32 years in the army. They shut him down while he's interviewing Kash Patel, who served in the administration, talking about his time serving in the administration. They shut down a major general interviewing Lee Greenwood, talking about his song and the motivation for his song, because they mentioned a few opinions about how they felt about the election. They didn't come out and say, "Oh, this was 100% front." They gave an opinion. Opinions are no longer allowable on YouTube. Think about that, everybody. You can't have an opinion.
Yeah, and if this, by the way, so much of the pandemic was not true, and those of us who were skeptical and those of us who fought back turned out to be right.
Yep.
And look at Boris Johnson's speech, Don. Look at his speech. He basically admitted everything was wrong. He's like, this has got to be over.
Right.
We have Democrats now joining with Governor Youngkin in Virginia because they're like, this just can't go on forever. This cannot happen forever. You're not changing our lives. It didn't work.
Right.
It did not work. There's a reason why they're doing that. And I'm telling you, as a pollster, I don't think I could poll the true potential, the true anger of this issue. I don't think so. I just don't think there are enough people who are willing to admit it. And then also, it's fundamental to response bias. Like the kind of people that are now so opposed to it are the ones that are much more difficult to reach, But yeah, tell everybody what you got going on for tomorrow, because I'm coming on tomorrow with or without YouTube. So tell everybody what you got going on, and then we'll kick rocks.
So we got we'll be on Rumble, we'll be on Facebook. Of course, you can always keep up with us at donsmithshow.locals.com. Of course, we've got you on the program. Looking forward to that. I know you've got some good stuff you're working on right now, and looking forward to discussing that.
Yeah, I'll shoot it over to you too. Yeah.
And we got Peter Hussey on the show. And then we've also got, always great with Peter, is going through his national security stuff. The guy's awesome. But also, we're going to have a live report from the trucker situation up in Canada. So we've got somebody there on the scene who's been there since the beginning of this thing, has been going along with these guys. And so has some really good stuff there. This is something that people should probably be talking about. It's a pretty big deal.
Real news.
It's like real news. It's a huge thing now. And these people have raised like $7 million on their GoFundMe. They've got massive trucks involved in this and goes for miles. So really interested to find out what's going on inside of all that. But it's against, of course, the mandates. So they're pushing back against the mandates, and they're taking action. So love to see that happening, and looking forward to getting a full report on that. So tomorrow, noon Eastern time, everybody tune in. Rumble, Facebook, and DonSmithShow.locals.com.
All right, Don, my friend, as always, thanks for joining us. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll shoot that stuff over to you too, so you got plenty of time for it. Perfect. And give Brenda our best. We'll see you tomorrow.
Best to Laura and the kids.
All the best, buddy.
All right, bye-bye.
It's Don, ladies and gentlemen, for the Don Smith Show. Go visit his Rumble page right now. Take a second and subscribe to it. Really, what he was saying about the difficulty to migrate some people over is very real. We have the same, we're having the same issue. So, go check them out on Rumble. Go check us out on Rumble if you're not already. I know how convenient YouTube is. I know how hard it is to change behavior. But this is the way it is. Getter, nice audience today, Getter. Nice audience. All right. We started off with, and maybe a lot of people didn't realize we were streaming. Great. We're very happy to see all of you from Getter joining. What else? Let's see. Locals, of course. We didn't get to testing. I want to test. So I'm not really probably going to be able to give any kind of, it's just the way it is. Every time I try to give notice, then I know something doesn't happen. The poll is done now, though, so we can just spend time talking about that and focusing on that. What else? Let's see. Yeah. And I do want to we've been kind of ignoring those social bias indicators, and I want to share with some of you. It's in the crosstab, and you guys can go check it out. But look through, before we start talking about this together, look through by gender, look through by race, look by area type, look by ideology, look by education, and you will see this common thread throughout, especially when we're talking about who is very uncomfortable being honest. It's possible, like I said, over the COVID issue, that it's possible that it's just not possible to catch this level of anger, and that some people are just going to keep it to themselves. And that's how you end up seeing Pennsylvania doing what it did, New Jersey, on down the line. All right. So with that in mind, I'm going to go follow me on Getter if you don't already. Twitter, follow me on Getter. Got to move some of you guys over. Sign up to Getter. It's cool. It's getting better every day. At People's Pundit on Getter. At People's_Pundit on Twitter while I'm still there. But if you follow me on Twitter, then come over to Getter. All right. Best place, of course, to follow me is peoplespundit.locals.com. TV app is now out. Just saw a message from them. We're going to have a lot promoted on there. That's really cool. I see a lot of people more and more, watching us on the Fire Stick. We now have the app as well. It'll be in your Spectrum boxes, your Cox boxes, whatever else. Make it as easy as possible for you to be able to view us. All right. With that in mind, I got Gruber on Monday at 1:05. Check me out on Steve Gruber. Love going on Steve. He is smart when it comes to polls. If you missed his opening statement, his monologue this week about how reckless and careless and corrupt the media is, you've got to watch it. He was phenomenal. So if you want to go back and check it out, I strongly suggest you do. But definitely don't miss me at 1:05 Monday Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be going over the public polling project, what we saw, the results, all of that. All right. So with that in mind, I'm going to go. For the rest of you, have a great, safe weekend. All right. We hope you join the data revolution at peoplespundit.locals.com. 2022 is going to be a big year. 21 was already great, but 2022 is going to be a big year for our locals page. All right. So we welcome you to join the fun. All right. With that in mind, I'm out. I'm out like Trout. I'm going to go leave you with the Bone Band, of course. Always special thanks to them. See you guys soon. Have a great and safe weekend.
Bet you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a knife, to give into the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette.